This is Conversations with Women in Sales, an award-winning podcast launched by Barbara Giammanco and now hosted by Lori Richardson. Listen to interviews with amazing women about their journeys in their sales careers, often discussing sales leadership tips, ideas, and strategies. We aim to inspire women to consider or continue a sales career, and for some women to grow into sales leadership. Men, we need your support and appreciate your allyship. Now here's our host, Lori Richardson.
This episode is sponsored by RapidScale. At RapidScale, exceptional technology is powered by exceptional people. As a growing leader in secure, reliable, managed cloud solutions, we help businesses simplify IT and unleash innovation. With a broad portfolio spanning AWS, Azure, and Google to a full set of private cloud and cybersecurity solutions, RapidScale helps companies turn technology into their biggest competitive advantage. And we're hiring cloud sales professionals to join our team. As part of the Cox family of companies, we offer best-in-class benefits, a commitment to work-life balance, an award-winning workplace experience, and top-notch rewards and recognition for our sales teams. Connect to work that improves lives, including yours. To learn more, visit rapidscalegojobs.com today.
I'm here today with Samantha Craig, and she is senior sales manager at SEMrush. And we've known each other for a while, right? So you go by Sam, right? Is it?
Yeah, Sam is perfect.
Okay, Sam's good. And we've never met yet in person, but we've done a lot through LinkedIn back and forth. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I know that you started as a teacher, as did I. I worked with small children and I was making minimum wage. And I know that generally teachers across America, no matter what they're doing, it's not typically a high wage role. But you got into sales. And so I'm curious, you went to school for teaching, right? You want to be a teacher when you grew up. And so what happened? Tell us a little bit about that, getting into B2B.
Yeah. So I was going to be a first grade teacher. I graduated, was really hard to find a job. So I knew I wanted to travel and I knew I wanted to teach. So I was like, wonder if I could teach abroad. So I Googled teach abroad and South Korea came up. So I interviewed for that position. And 3 weeks later, I was told that I would be moving to South Korea for a year. So I told my parents, I'm moving to South Korea. And I taught there for a year, which before that, I was very introverted. I never really left my hometown. I thought I would always be there. And man, did that get me out of my comfort zone. I came back home after an incredible year, knew at that point I didn't want to stay in my little small hometown of Massachusetts. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and I was going to get my teaching license there. Needed a job, so I was a big believer that I was never going to work in an office. So I was like, if I'm going to work in an office, it is going to be a really awesome office. So I Googled coolest office in the DC area.
I love this.
And Cision, it was Vocus at the time, but Cision acquired that.
I remember those guys.
Yes, popped up and they had basketball courts, gym classes, an aquarium, spa days where people would come give you massage, give you mani-pedis. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. So I drove to DC, had an interview with still one of my best friends to this day, Sarah Carcone, and she took a shot on me with no sales experience. So
she said you could do sales since you've been a teacher?
She just said, she was like, Sam, there was something about you in the interview process that I knew you had the potential and I knew somebody needed to take a shot on you. Wow. So this was going to be temporary. And then I loved it. I am probably like one of those few rare people that I loved cold calling. I loved the adrenaline of somebody picking up the phone. I loved talking to strangers and then getting them to a meeting and talking about how I could help their business and help them succeed. And really, Lori, it was like teaching, but adults
it's
and
thing.
a lot more money. not having to deal with the parents. And I could also leave work. At that time, we didn't have Slack or Teams, so you had nothing on your phone. So I'd work my butt off and then I'd go to happy hours or networking events and I could leave work at work. It was a beautiful.
Many years ago, I went to that office because there was some kind of a day we flew from Boston. I flew with another marketer and we spent the day there. I don't even know what it was about, but I remember how cool that place was. It was really neat. Yeah, so that's cool. So you progressed over the years and you got into leadership. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the first time I got into leadership, I was only in my mid to late 20s and I wasn't ready for it. So any sales role I was in, I was always a top performer. It came very natural to me. And I think a lot of that is because I've always wanted to learn and I've always been genuinely curious. So it just came to me. So I was doing really well. A leadership opportunity at a company called Wealth Engine kind of fell in my lap. And I realized I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to put my success in the hands of everybody else. So I did that for a year and a half, and then I stepped back down to an IC.
So
And then
had someone tapped you on the shoulder, or did you think that you might be ready and you started and then you realized? I'm just curious because usually people don't tap us on the shoulder.
They did. We were growing really fast and they needed a regional sales manager to take over like 4 of the different teams. So I stepped up and I enjoyed the coaching part of it. I enjoyed the one-on-ones and hopping on client calls, but in my mid-20s, I wasn't ready to not be in control of how much money that I could make at my own success. I ended up moving on from there. And that's when I joined Ranking, which then became DiscoverOrg, which then became what you know as ZoomInfo. And
That was a roller coaster, huh?
yeah. And that's where I spent about 7 years as an IC before going back to Cision as a manager under that first boss I had, Sarah Carcone.
Ah, so interesting. So interesting. And now you're at SEMrush.
Yes. Now I'm at SEMrush. So I have 9 people on my team, and it's really incredible because SEMrush has grown over 20% year over year with no outbound sales motion, no prospecting motion, no net new business acquisition. So it's a really exciting time because I get to coach these people on something I'm so passionate about, where it's an outbound sales process, standing out in a very noisy environment and teaching them how to sell. Really, because they've had hand raisers up until this point.
Yeah. And so what's your advice for women that want to get into sales, maybe leave a teaching career? We've had other women listening to the show who left teaching and got into sales. And I remember a woman that I helped who was in Maine, and she made like virtually nothing working as a teacher out in the rural country, and it was life-changing for her that she got into tech sales and made a 6-figure income within a couple of years. Well, but besides the money, what do you suggest? I mean, money is a great tool,
Yeah.
right? What do you suggest to women that are thinking about it?
I think the first step is talking to other people who have done it, right? It can be very intimidating. And I think a lot of women face imposter syndrome where you're so comfortable maybe teaching and you love what you do. And taking that jump is really, really hard. But if you really want it, like you have to figure out what you want, why you want it, and how you're going to get there. And I think the first step is using your network and using your resources to figure out if it is what you want. And if it is, how did those people get to where you want to go?
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about when I went from teaching and a company banked on me as well because I had no experience. And although I grew up in my grandmother's clothing store, she was actually a really good role model, but they just kept asking me, but do you like to sell? Because that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to like to sell. And I was interviewed by a guy who used to sell Cadillacs in downtown Seattle. It's funny. He got into tech sales. So I figured if he could do it, I could do it. So I just kept saying yes. And it's really nice when someone gives you that opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think you have to, if you want to break into tech sales, if even you're starting a little later in it, to be okay with starting as an SDR because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn the nitty gritty. And my husband's a good example of that, where he was a political advisor on Capitol Hill and he was making like $30,000 a year. And he saw me at Zoom Info working my way up, making really good money. So when he was in his 30s, he was like, I want to do that. And he started over. He worked so hard. And now he's an enterprise AE at another tech company. So I think if you want it, it's just about taking action, getting really uncomfortable because it's going to be hard, and using the resources that are so abundant all around us.
Yeah. I knew a former professional athlete who started as an SDR in sales after his big money-making career in sports. And he hung in there and he did it. But that's what you have to do sometimes, is to really learn the ropes and really get the fundamentals down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So would you stay in leadership? Is that you want to be a CEO someday? Or I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I'm definitely meant to be a leader. I find such fulfillment when I can build like a winning culture and a winning team. And most of or all of the teams I've built, I've managed 3 teams so far. It's just amazing seeing us all come together and seeing us celebrate wins and milestones. And I truly find so much fulfillment in that. I will never go back to an IC. I go back and forth where I want to go because I've seen executive leaders lose so much touch with the business and the people in the business that I don't want to live in spreadsheets. I don't want to spend my day in all internal meetings talking about numbers. I want to make an impact on my people. And I don't know, I'm sure with the right organization, that would be possible, but I don't want to move so far away from people directly that I can't like help develop and coach them up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so do you have what do you read, or do you watch or listen to podcasts? Do you see any video podcasts, or what kind of keeps you learning?
So there's a few. I right now, and actually probably for the past few years, anything Mel Robbins, any podcast she's on, any book she writes. So she has that 5-second rule where it's just, again, it goes back to taking action. You don't want to do something, count to 5 and just do it. Like just so simple, but just do it. And her latest book is Let Them, where,
Yeah.
Are you reading it?
Yeah, it's good.
It's so good. And again, so simple, but you just have to apply it.
Yeah, it's stuff that we think about. We didn't write the book, but we know this stuff. It's just, but when you really focus on it, I think it just makes so much sense. And I'm sure that's really good as a leader to instruct your teams with as well, to just don't worry about all the riffraff around you. There's so much to think about. It's like you really have to keep your focus and just let people, don't worry about it. You don't need to just focus on yourself, right?
Yeah. And there's really 2 ways that I help my team with that is one, if they're like, oh, what if they don't move forward? What if they go this way? What if, and I'm like, what if we flip that? And it's like, what if they do move forward? What if they don't go with that competitor? And then the other side is whenever you're scared to try something, like even somebody switching from sales to teaching, if it doesn't work out, so what? So what? You tried something, you learned from it, and now move to something else. I think we hold ourselves back so much by fear, and it's just try it. And if it doesn't work, so what?
Yeah, you're not going to make a mistake, especially with sales, because sales skills are so transferable to life. And if someone went on to be an entrepreneur, for example, they're going to be their first salesperson. And if they want to stay in an organization and rise, they're going to be selling their ideas. And no matter which way you go, you're going to be selling something. When when you have family, you have kids, right? You have to sell kids on stuff. They're young and they keep going, but why? And they're selling you back, right?
Yes, they are going to be some powerhouses when they grow up because they're 2 and 4 and they already are quite a force.
I know that's a problem with raising kids when you're in sales.
Hey.
One of those two.
Yep, yep. It was funny when my husband got into sales and I recommended those books to him, like just a bunch of different sales books that I read over the years. And he was like, I just realized these 6 years that we've been together, you've been selling me since like our first date. And I'm like, and now we're married and we have kids.
Isn't that funny? And yet selling is a helping profession, right? It's selling is admirable. I just saw a commercial because today's Super Bowl. We're recording on Super Bowl Sunday. Go, you're cheering for the Eagles. And I saw this scummy sales guy in a commercial. And oh, it was for the floor covering in the cars. I can't remember what they're called. And he was telling this guy that his car was probably worth more, even though he didn't want it to be. And he's darn. And I'm just thinking, that's still such a bad portrayal of salespeople. And I don't know why they keep doing it, but that is not how sales is.
No, and unfortunately, there is still some of that, right? But it's not truly what sales is or like a career path forward. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's few and far between for sure. And it gets perpetuated. I just want young women and girls in high school to know that there is a career around selling business to business products and services. And it's very rewarding. It's still underserved by women. We still can use more women to get into it, and it would be very rewarding for many of them. It's not for everybody, right? Sales isn't for everybody. And I don't think everyone would be good. I don't think women are better than men, although people argue with me about that. I just think if we're as good, then why aren't half of the sales force is women in all the different industries? So do you ever think about stuff like that?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I was thinking about in the past 5 months, I've had hundreds of interviews, hundreds, and 3 women out of those hundreds. So it gets me thinking because it's not like their applications aren't getting, or it's not like their applications are getting rejected. We're just not getting applications.
You're
So-
telling me you only have 3 women apply of all the hundreds that you looked at? Oh my goodness.
As far as like the actual interview. So we have an HR team that screens and we want more women, but I'm wondering why out of all of those applications are there so few women?
And that's surprising to me because it's MarTech that you sell, and there are a lot of women in marketing. So I feel like there's a whole niche there of women that are in marketing that might want to get into marketing sales. I'll keep that in mind and send some people your way next time you're hiring.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So any advice for women who are maybe thinking about going into leadership, but they're not sure if they're ready? Like you were talking about, how did you know when you were ready? I guess is my question.
I knew so when I was at ZoomInfo, I expressed interest in leadership, and it was a fast-paced company, as we all know, and a lot of change. And my direct leader at the time was like, "Just wait, let's wait maybe a year or two because we really need you on the team." So I was like, "Not gonna apply for me." So then when Sarah reached out and said, "Hey, I'm growing my team. I just got promoted to director. I have a team for management," knew the leader, knew the company. I was like, I don't want to leave where I currently am, but I need to grow. I don't want to be an IC anymore. And it was more of I was ready to put my success in the hands of others. I got enough experience, I thought, as an IC to know what works well, what doesn't work, common challenges AEs will face. And I wasn't getting fulfilled from big deals anymore. I was just like, okay, what? Am I going to just keep closing all these deals myself? So I knew I was ready because I wasn't fulfilled off of like just closing deals
Were
anymore.
they surprised when you left?
Yeah, quite a bit. I still keep in touch with Henry pretty often and a lot of the folks over there when he spent 7 years there.
Yeah,
Mm.
but it's good advice for companies to know that when people, particularly women, want promotional opportunities, first of all, we tend to not promote women as much in business. Men are promoted more. We know that. And we know that there's like a missing rung in the promotion cycle for women, and women leave. They go to other companies, and people need to know that. And I've noticed a lot of women just going off, starting their own thing now, or being fractional CROs or different roles. So we really need companies to support us in terms of helping us rise. And when you make it very clear, and then people are surprised after the fact. I've seen that a lot of times.
And I think for women, if you do want to get into leadership or you want to get promoted and you're doing the right things, you're successful, you're hitting your metrics that you need to, that would warrant a promotion, and you're asking for it, like, you have to advocate for yourself. And if you still can't get to that next level and you keep getting pushed, I think you have to ask yourself a real question. Am I at the right company? Because there are so many companies, and I see that at SEMrush now, where I have never seen such amazing humans as leaders who really want you to be successful. And I honestly didn't know a company like this existed.
And that is really good advice too, because I've talked to a lot of people who are very frustrated with their immediate supervisor, people that don't want them to talk to other people in the company, and just keeping them doing just one thing, just get on the phones. And there are good leaders out there, and that's really great that you mentioned that as well. I'm sure you'll probably get some applications after this interview.
We have a few open spots still.
That's wonderful. That's great. And you're also involved in Women in Sales, right? And different Girls Club. Is it Girls Club?
I did Girls Club. I've been a mentor for 2 years. I didn't apply for this year just because of a new job. I need to not put myself in so many different directions right now. I just want to be focused on my team. But that's an incredible program. I think very highly of Lauren Bailey.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. I know it's really appreciated. And that's great. Well, we'll definitely keep our eyes on your career, and we'll send people your way. We'll encourage more teachers that it's okay. Teaching is a great profession. And if you're frustrated at all and you want to look at how money can be a tool in your future, I would encourage people to look into getting into some aspect of sales. And that's the other thing, is that you can go so many different directions in sales. If you don't want to talk to prospects, you can actually work with existing customers and be an account manager that does some upselling and cross-selling. And you can move horizontally in an organization. There's just so many options. A lot of CEOs started in a sales role as well. So lots and lots of options. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it comes back to speaking up for yourself, understanding what you want to do and why you want to do it, and taking the first step to make it happen by talking to other people. So you should never feel stuck. Life is so short that a job is just a part of your life, that I just feel like there are so many opportunities out there, to your point, Lori. It's just, where do you want to go, why, and how are you going to get there? And you can.
Yeah. And for salespeople, what do you tell them about how to keep learning and growing so that they do their job well?
Yeah, I think it's amazing with all of the resources we have available to us today from people who have been in their shoes. So honestly, if you don't want, or if you aren't learning on your own and you're not investing time in yourself, that's your choice, because there is so much information out there available for free too, like from podcasts, books to webinars. So just commit to it and invest in yourself and keep learning. And I think the best salespeople, they never stop learning, no matter what.
Yeah, it's kind of like doctors, where you have to act everything. Like, it's okay to say, hey, that's a really good question. I've never heard that one. And to keep learning, because when you run into someone that acts like they know everything, that's a red flag, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like absolutely a red flag. And that's even where I can have an idea of how somebody is going to be successful at sales if they are learning or not. If they're making excuses, oh, I don't know how to do this. It's, what have you done to try? Because yeah, and there are so many races out there. I'm not a big believer in excuses. That's for sure.
Great advice. Samantha Craig, Senior Sales Manager at SEMrush. We wish you continued success. And I know I've been cheering you on for a number of years, and I can't wait to see what lies ahead. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Lori.
I'm your announcer, Larry Long Jr., and we sincerely thank you for listening to this episode of Conversations with Women in Sales, encouraging you to share an episode with all of your friends and your favorite male allies. Let's work together to change the face of sales. Until next time, you can find all of our episodes at womensalespros.com/podcast.